Hey, good morning. Um, Welcome to today's edition of Sunday Over Easy. My name's Tommy, and just sharing with you a few tidbits of facts that I've had help me really navigate my way through my own thinking. I was going to specifically just focus on three different neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. If you read any of my posts before, I kind of explained what the difference between a neurotransmitter and a neuromodulator is. One communicates individually between one neuron to another, and the other one helps develop a pathway for those neurons to communicate, or you could think of that as a thought pattern to develop. Three of those compounds are acetylcholine, dopamine, and serotonin. Dopamine and serotonin, they have multiple facets that they're able to use inside our brain. Two of those are, they give us a feeling of like, man, I feel good. I get this good feeling when those are released. We kind of have this kind of little joy feeling inside us. And the other, actually, the two are that they act both as a neurotransmitter and neuromodulator, and so it really is beneficial for us to figure out how to release those, especially when we're trying to create a certain specific neuroplasticity. We want new neural pathways to develop inside our brain that kind of allow us to have a more harmonious existence in life, and so there's many ways, man, to go about, getting self-help and stuff. And I highly recommend, whether you're doing, religions, psychology, psychiatry, self-help with that 12-step programs, whatever you're doing, you might want to incorporate some of these strategies into your own. And a way to get the body to release those three compounds is through exercise, is one way. And specifically when you're exercising. And a lot of things happen when we're exercising, but two main things that happen is when we initially get that burst of those neurotransmitters released is usually when we pass a place of resistance in our exercise. We kind of don't think we can do it, and then we kind of do it. So whether it's running, jogging, weightlifting, yoga or something, we kind of do it as a stretch, or lifting a certain amount of weight. I don't know if I can get the next set out, rep out, and we do it anyway. That's when all of a sudden the body or the brain will release some trigger the flood of especially dopamine. Acetylcholine is released too, and those two compounds really help us, help our brain give it the essential nutrients it needs to rebuild new neural pathways. So put two and two together. You're doing some self-help program. You either before you go into therapy or whatever therapy it is, or afterwards, put some exercise into that. And that knowledge that you're trying to attain, those thought processes that you're trying to achieve, that way that you're trying to reconstruct your ego, will have the nutrients it needs to grow, much like bodybuilding requires amino acids, plus effort, plus consistency. It's just not a one-time thing. You need to do this stuff over and over. And the more repetitive we do it, the more the path builds, when you first build the path, and the more you use it, the more it comes into vision, So I wanted to talk about, like when we're trying to figure out how to change ourselves, or how to kind of be reborn or grow, or, there's many ways to talk about that, but there's a term called homeostasis, and homeostasis affects us in like a ton of different ways, man. There's a physical homeostasis. If we're kind of grow up, we have a overweight, and we struggle with eating and things like that. We carry that we develop. That's kind of who we are. We develop that, and as an adult, we'll carry that into our adult life. And to try to change that is really difficult. We have to go through a lot of efforts. The same thing holds true in the way we think, in the way that our ego is constructed. Our ego, or the I am, is our ego, man. It's safe. This is how I am. This is what I do. In order to change those dynamics, we need to put a lot of effort, a lot of work into that. It doesn't come easy, and with what I don't understand something the way somebody else understands something. You don't understand what I understand, because how you understand how you understand how I understand. So your understanding is based on how you understand me. So there's filters involved in that. So, if I say, man, this is a really obtuse situation, you really got to kind of go, some people, that means, it means like, upside down. And to some people that means, I got a sidestep. There's like the way that we understand things is based on a filter that we have inside our brain that takes in this massive amount of information and reduces it to this finite I understand, So trying to change that way that we understand is trying to fix the broken in our broken, and we kind of have to get objective on that, because if we stay subjective in our thinking, I think this, I think that, I want this to happen, I like you, I don't like you, I. If we stay fixed on I, we're stuck on the ego. The ego, that homeostasis we created as a kid growing up is what's ruling us as an adult. So we need to change that kid. We need to kind of restructure how we think. And, I think a lot of our greatest philosophers and greatest teachers are all trying to give us that ability to think anew, to rebuild the boat, and a great way to tap into that mindset is because if sometimes we're stuck, there's an obstacle that we kind of can't get around, right? And we try to avoid it, or we try to hide it, or do things like this. Aristotle said the core to all our problems in life is resistance. Right? So that means different things to different people. So I'll try to explain what that means to me, and then you can get your own understanding of how you understand what I understand, And so resistance is the fear. Resistance is the judgment. Resistance is the complacency. Resistance is this idea that I know, And so when I'm stuck in that idea of I know, I'm allowing the resistance to control me. And if we want to turn that around and walk into the resistance, figure, okay, man, instead of pushing this stuff, I'm going to walk into it. I'm going to try to figure out what is this resistance trying to teach me? What is this obstacle? What is this pain? What is this suffering? Instead of putting it in a closet, I'm going to open the closet, take it out, and look at it, And it's great. I mean, I think sometimes we get complacent in our own understanding of how we think somebody is teaching us. So whether it's Christ, whether it's Buddha, whether we have this understanding, and we maybe don't have the best idea of what we have this idea that what we think is what they say, but that's not what they were saying. They were saying something different. We just understand it different, and in our limited understanding, we create our heaven and we create our hell, depending upon how we think. So people like Nietzsche has this term called free spirit. And if any of this rings something, research Nietzsche, do a little Google search and say, what's, Nietzsche free spirit? And he'll talk about how to embrace a free spirit mentality. And his definition of free spirit is not some 60s love child who's just looking to, have fun, make me feel happy and everything's great. Nietzsche's idea of free spirit is how to be an individual, how to stand up and figure out what are your ideals in life, what it is that I want to accomplish, what do I want to give to life, and what do I want to get from life. And by figuring out what I want to give to life, I wind up getting from life, So, in that kind of thinking, Seneca's term of the obstacle is the path, makes a lot of sense. All of a sudden, when you start thinking like that, when you turn that upside down, that kind of how I think, and get out of that, you start seeing things in a completely different way. And, if you try to embrace this idea of, I talk about releasing these neurotransmitters and neuromodulators and stuff as the answer, it's not going to help you if you're stuck right now. You need to it's kind of like a garden, If you just throw down the seeds on a bunch of weeds and, a hard surface that's been perched and dry, the seeds are going to blow away and they're not going to be able to, grow. They're going to and if they do grow, they're going to grow very shabby in the mix of weeds and tundra and, all this kind of stuff. So you need to put in the work to weed the garden. And for us, weeding the garden is a lot of the things I talked about in my previous post. Doing meditation, doing some exercise like yoga, doing some things that kind of help us quiet the mind. an oxymoron to that process is, as we start to quiet the mind, it's really difficult. We start feeling, it doesn't feel good at first. It feels uncomfortable because the mind doesn't want to change. The mind has this homeostasis that it's been guided in. And when you start challenging that, it doesn't feel good inside. So we need to be able to pull the weeds. We need to be able to work through that pain of, you know what, the things that, no, maybe I'm not nice. Maybe I'm arrogant. No, maybe I don't know the right. Maybe I'm just judgmental. No, I don't. So we've got to, instead of saying yes to ourselves, or instead of having somebody who's a Pollyanna that kind of gives us whatever we want to hear, we need to be associated with people who are willing to point out and say, you know what, I don't think you're thinking that right way. I think you're actually wrong. I think actually, and we need to be insulted. Usually we got to pay somebody to insult us before we'll take it. Like we're overweight, we're not going to get in shape. And if somebody tells us, in the lounge when we're sitting there eating our donut, we're talking about trying to get in shape, they say, hey, you know what, man, if I didn't eat so many donuts, or if you didn't put butter on top of your bread, you'd probably get in shape better. We're more likely to be pissed off. Like, who do you think you're talking to, But if we pay a personal trainer, they say, listen, man, you want to stay fat, keep eating the way they're treating. If you want to get better, do what I tell you to do. All of a sudden, we're like, oh, we're just going to take that advice. So, big thing for us in trying to develop and trying to have a Nietzsche free spirit kind of ideal in us is to not be insulted when we're insulted. To not feel offended when somebody offends us. I think Christ was misinterpreted when people misinterpret the idea of love your enemy. I've said this before, but love your enemy is not so much about buying somebody that you don't like dinner and taking them out on a date. I think it's more about seeing how they think, seeing, okay, well, what don't I like about this person? Well, they do this. Well, why do they do that? How come they do that? And when you start looking at how you can start imagining how they think, maybe the problems they've had in their lives that cause them to be so incompassionate, uncompassionate, some rude or some judgmental. Man, it must have, what they went through. And you start thinking about them in that light. All of a sudden, that kind of starts untying the knots that we have in our head. We're like, wow, well, I do that, but I do it in a different way. And I judge myself as being okay when I do it. Well, when I don't judge them for doing what they do, and instead look into why they do, I wonder why they do that, I start being able to not rationalize my own behavior, and I turn that looking glass around and start to be able to see inside myself the things that I want to become and I want to be. And I know it's a lot to swallow and stuff, and I love like MLK, man. Just take the first step. You don't need to see the top of the staircase, man. Just take the first step. And today, taking the first step could be making your bed. Trying to change that algorithm, that way of doing things that we all have in our life. Before we go to bed, we do this. When we wake up, we do. Instead of doing that, just say, you know what? I'm going to make my bed a little. I'm going to put my pillow here. I'm going to do this, or, instead of doing this before I go to bed, I'm not going to. And when you do that, and you say to yourself, you know what? I'm changing things in the way that I do things, so that maybe I can change things in the way that I think things. And once we're able to change the way we think, all of a sudden, the water is starts flowing down. The dam is bursted, and all of a sudden, it just we let the water follow the path that it wants to follow. Bruce Lee, be like water. And that's a heavy concept if you think about that, because water's not afraid of the obstacle. Water just deals with it, whatever's in front of it, and as it does, over time, the obstacle becomes the way. The obstacle becomes the path. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a lot to digest and stuff, and I hope it makes some sense to you. And you know what, man? Let's just make today a good day. Let's have a good day. And I smell the ocean right now. I can hear it, going through me. I see these flecks of light coming in, this array, this prism that's creating all these different colors and stuff. My brain's interpreting that. My pineal gland is secreting serotonin right now because it's secreting melatonin because it sees the dark changing to light. There's so many things that happen. I just finished this run. I have a bunch of dopamine and acetylcholine running through my body. It's giving me a joyous feeling, but I'm trying to use that more in a way of creating new neural pathways, and I'm trying to reflect the light that I'm trying to embrace and stuff. And I hope we all can do that for each other. And let's have a good day today. Bye.